Hello and welcome back to Eye on Marvel. My name is Peter Levi. This is take 3 for me. Take 1 for you. There is a cat loose. We'll see how that goes. And we are going to attempt here to finally make the video version of the MCU News Digest I posted recently. Down in the description, you'll get the link to that. Reminder, of course, to like, subscribe, etc., etc. You guys know the drill. And yeah, I rather than following the order that the article goes into, I want to start with the hot stuff because this is the hardest thing to go through and elucidate. So we want to talk about Wanda Vision. Now, why are we talking about Wanda Vision? The numbers are out, the real numbers, the reception's pretty well understood. What the hell are we talking about Wanda Vision for? Falcon the Winter Soldier just ended, Loki is coming. Why? So for whatever reason, and we'll get into potentially why that is in a second, Marvel decided to put out a little puff piece in Rolling Stone, where there's a quote from Feige about WandaVision, and there's a quote from Elizabeth Olsen. And these are two very different things. I think Olsen's is... it's a lot less complicated, but Feige, for whatever reason, decided to throw a nuclear bomb at himself and hope no one noticed. So let's just briefly get out of the way that Feige is an incredibly smart man. He worked his way from the bottom to the top. He's used to working with difficult people, and he's an expert at saying nothing. When he's sitting next to Amy Pascal and she's lying to someone other than a weird look, he never contradicts her. So this is a guy who does not make verbal mistakes in interviews. I don't want to say ever, because I've never seen all his quotes, but it's certainly not what I expect from him. It's not what I'm used to. So what am I going on about? What could he have possibly said about WandaVision that I think is explosive? Well, here's the quote. Some of it is summary from Rolling Stone, some of it is direct. I'll let you know the direct. So, quote from Feige. Oh, it would have been so cool to see Doctor Strange, but it would have taken away from Wanda, which is what we didn't want to do. We didn't want the end of the show to be commoditized to go to the next movie. Here's the white guy. Let me show you how power works. End of his quote. That meant the Doctor Strange movie 2 had to be rewritten. Scott Derrickson. In the end, Feige says Marvel's process is, quote, a wonderful combination of very dedicated coordination and chaos magic, end quote. At one point, back when Doctor Strange was supposed to be part of the story, the in-universal commercials were going to be messages from Strange to Wanda, and there was also talk of having Cumberbatch appear in one of the ads. Boy, wouldn't that have made more sense. Much more sense. Back to the quote. Elizabeth Olsen is pushing back on criticism that Wanda got off too easy by flying away without punishment after she forced an entire town of people into her sitcom fantasy world. Quote, she had to get away before the people who have to hold her accountable got there, and where she went is a place that no one could find her because she knows that she is going to be held accountable, and I think she has a tremendous amount of guilt. End quote. So, Elizabeth Olsen's is a lot more straightforward than Feige's is. But let's think about, why are we doing this at all? Why are we putting this out? Why are we addressing criticisms of WandaVision 2 months later? Well, the reason you address it, there's two reasons. One, the criticisms haven't gone away. That's one reason to do it. But much more importantly, Doctor Strange 2 is coming. And to me, this is an effort to prevent those criticisms from impacting the marketing of Doctor Strange 2. What they don't want the conversation to be is about Wanda's actions going into the movie, and they don't want people asking the question, why wasn't Doctor Strange there to help? And while I think Elizabeth Olsen's answer is not very good, to me it's a lot less problematic than Kevin Feige's. And no one is talking about this response. No one is bringing up the elephant in the room. You don't see it from scoopers. You don't see it from coverage. There's just, they bring up the quote, but they just sort of do it in general terms about how, because they always say Feige's decisions are great. Isn't it great that ... What the problem with that quote is, to me, he brought race into it. I think bringing gender into it would have been just as bad, and I guess you could say white guy brings in both, but guy can sometimes be a gender neutral term. why bother? You could have left it as we didn't want Doctor Strange to take her agency away and leave it at that. That's still a bad answer. But bringing this stuff in, you're opening the fandom to a world of hurt. So first, let's just go into just on the bare bones why it's a bad answer. Someone helping you is not invalidated by who they are. Someone teaching you is not invalidated by who they are. If you went to school and you happen to have a Caucasian male teacher, that does not mean all the knowledge you learned is invalidated and your agency has been taken away because that's how that happened. It's just ridiculous. Even for the most radical people in the culture war, that's a pretty hard one to swallow logically. Now, I don't think Feige's a stupid person. I think he knows that's silly. So why say it that way? Well, the problem is everyone watching that show kept asking, where the fuck is the guy who teaches magic to go help this woman who is in distress and doing horrible things? Where is he? Why isn't he helping? And so he wants to prevent that conversation from happening. So one way to get the media to shut their pie holes is to shove in the culture war and be like, hey, don't worry about these story logic problems. We got a culture war to fight. Just forget all about it. So to me, it's a very cynical thing. And while that will successfully, I think, shut up the media about that specific question, unfortunately, you have just opened the door to the culture warriors. There is a group of people who have been banging on the door at Marvel for years now. They tried to get in Captain Marvel. It didn't work. These are the people who infest the fandoms of Star Wars, Star Trek, Doctor Who, Ghostbusters. All those fandoms are giant clusterfucks screaming because the people in charge decided to go and publicly talk about this, that, and the other. And whether you agree with their specifics or not isn't really the point. Whether you agree with Feige's comment or not is not the point. The point is, all of those other fandoms have turned into giant messes where the focus is on that issue as opposed to anything else you're doing. It has hurt all those products, continues to hurt them. By opening this door, I'm afraid that Feige is going to allow this to enter into the Marvel sphere, and especially given the slate we've got in Phase 4, you would be looking at an epic fight within the fandom. And Marvel makes 4-quadrant IP. They're meant to be for everybody. Mom, dad, grandpa, the little kids. Everyone is supposed to come in and enjoy, irrespective of the political stripes. And we know Marvel has politics. Not hard left, but soft left politics. So you don't really bring up poverty, you don't really bring up the environment, you don't really talk about real societal change, but you do sort of in a vague way talk about empowerment. That's kind of what Disney does, and this stuff will sail through censorship grids here, there, and everywhere. You can sell it in China. It's not blatant enough to piss people off. It's very safe. And at the same time, when you go to the cocktail parties of the people in the industry, you can pat yourself on the back, talk about how you've been a good boy, and that is fine. To me, here now, this is one comment in a little article from Rolling Stone, and I don't know how many people have picked up on it, but I just worry that we're going to start to see stuff like this more and more, because his other producers say this kind of stuff all the time, but they're not Kevin Feige, so it doesn't matter. So we'll see. Maybe I'm alarmed over nothing. We'll have to wait and see. As for Elizabeth Olsen, unfortunately for her, because the shows have apparently been designed to be optional viewing for film viewers, it is exceedingly difficult to see her being punished for apologizing to Monica Rambeau, who said, I would do the same. Very much like Falcon and Carly Morgenthau, the same sort of stupid logic, and then just flying off and leaving the people she tortured behind. I don't see in a movie where you got to accomplish a lot of things where Wanda's really going to be punished. And punished in what way? Because in a film, you would have to introduce those townspeople. So they'd either need an advocate, but you'd also need an explainer attached to it. And that's going to be awfully difficult. Can you really pay off torturing innocent people for 9 episodes in a film that's not really about that? I don't think so. So this is just another attempt at spinning an understandable critique of that show. Now, they didn't bring up Ralph Bohner. I'm pretty sure Marvel has already decided to fix that, because of how memey that has become. And it also had an impact on Falcon the Winter Soldier. And in fact, will probably continue to have an impact until they have adjusted it. So there is no need to bring it up here. Um, Finally, and somewhat related to this, I pointed this out on Twitter. Um, it's amazing to me that Marvel, in its first two Disney Plus shows, has one, justified torture if you're sad, and two, justified murder if people disagree with you. Now, those are clearly not the intents of the showrunners, but those are the exact same messages. Wanda uh, is given a happy ending, as it were, in her show. She has evolved to become the Scarlet Witch. She defeats Agatha Harkness. Um, yeah, she has to give up Vision, but there's a Vision who's still alive. And yeah, she gave up her kids, but we hear them screaming in the Darkhold. So she hasn't really had to give up anything. She has just benefited from torturing people. And then, of course, for Falcon, he is the apologist and the advocate for someone who murdered people because they disagreed with her, and someone who threatened to murder children uh, just to get leverage. That is the competency of the writing of these two shows. And it has me worried for Loki. Although I do have a theory. I have a theory that Feige said, okay, I'm going to entrust these shows to a showrunner. I'm going to say I want A, B, C, whatever. And then I'm going to leave them to it. That's what these shows sort of strike me as. So what if that's true? That means any of these shows could be good or bad, and the fact that it's the MCU really has nothing to do with it other than the way it looks and the characters involved. I really do hope that we get better quality control coming up. There's no chance, really, I think, for that to have impacted Hawkeye, Miss Marvel, possibly not even She-Hulk. But maybe in Moon Knight, maybe, Feige will be like, you know what? Those scripts need a little more vetting. We need a little more, common sense, a little more logic put in there, a little more coherence. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, that just it's one of those things that just struck me. I was like, what are we doing here? So with the exciting stuff out of the way, I suppose, let's dive into more sort of normal MCU news. So we had a couple of supposed scoops about She-Hulk. These come from YouTuber Everything Always. That person has no track record that I'm aware of, like pro or con. So, we're sitting in neutral at the moment. And he got shouted out by Mikey Sutton, who generally seems to lean on lesser known individuals for scoops, or at least echoing. Although this presumably echoes things he's heard as well. So the first thing is, Everything Always said Titania will be the main villain of She-Hulk. And this is unfortunately one of those things where we'll never be able to assess whether this is real information or not, because everyone, including me, has made that speculation. Titania is like the main She-Hulk villain. So, pardon me, that fits my expectations as well. The second one is that Charlie Cox has finished his filming on She-Hulk. He was spotted on set, so we know that's real. And he's believed to only be Matt Murdock. That fits earlier rumors as well. And Sutton does add here that he believes that the plans are for the Daredevil reveal to be in a more prominent place than Spider-Man 3 or She-Hulk, like where he can get more attention. And my assumption would be if he indeed is appearing in Echo, it would be in that show where he'll come out. And that makes sense because you're not going to sell an Echo show just for Echo. Having Daredevil there is going to sell that for you. Now, we do have some cause for concern. Again, that Feige comment causing problems. If we're worried about white dudes being powerful, well, what is Matt Murdock versus Echo? Are we gonna see Daredevil's competency brought down just because we're concerned with how Echo is perceived? That's a very real concern. On a story level, that shouldn't matter at all. But you really do have to wonder, what are they going to do there? We'll wait and see, though. We don't know what his involvement with Echo is at all, so we have to be careful when we speculate. A little bit about the Eternals. This is not related to the big article I put out yesterday. So we finally know why the Eternals cast is such a hodgepodge, and that is producer Nate Moore. So for those of you, and as far as I know, it's currently just me, but for those of you who are offended by how Gilgamesh is cast, Nate Moore is the guy. Now, he's not going to receive any flack for that because in the weird way diversity is done, it is very American focused and very economically focused, and no one cares about Iraqis. So if you're going to shit on their culture, no one cares. But it bothers me. Will that impact my viewing of the film? We'll have to see. If the leaks are correct, Gilgamesh has a tiny role, so he'll be there and gone. I did mention when they came out that I didn't think anyone would discuss the Gemma Chan leak. That remains true. I said I didn't think anyone would discuss the broader film leak. That's mostly true. No one in the Marvel space has. A few other isolated people have, but other than that, it's sort of just sailed through. So yeah, that's just what I expect. We had a title change. Captain Marvel 2 is now the Marvels, which I think we all assume is meant to include Monica Rambeau and Kamala Khan. A nod to both of them, but I mean that certainly could have happened at the beginning. You didn't need to call it Captain Marvel 2 initially. So why the change? My belief, and I've seen this echoed from some other people, is that because that film Captain Marvel was controversial, Brie Larson has become controversial, and put aside whether you think either of those things are legitimate, that's not really the point. So I think Marvel is taking the easiest way to try to move away from that. And I think that's a smart move. Now, I don't think Monica Rambeau is going to help this film at all. Her origin in Wanda Vision was not very good. There's still a chance Kamala Khan can hit it big. I'm not the target audience there, but if the YA audience likes it, then she can be a real driver for audiences there. Otherwise, I think that's going to be a hard movie to get people to go to. I really do. We'll see though. Next up, so we had a Q&A from Sutton, a quite involved one, and I'm just going to touch on the things that I think are of particular interest. So he says Norman Osborn is coming, but won't be a big bad. He's not going to be like a big phase ending villain. And this is a little different from the 2019 rumors we had about Dark Avengers in his role. And I agree with him. He says Sony wants Marvel to do a Agent Venom character, I assume. I don't know how that would benefit Sony. You would think that they would want either further integration in their own films or to do their own stuff. Unless this is part of a broader strategy of just licensing over characters to Marvel. So I'm not saying this is necessarily wrong, but I don't really see the logic behind it. This is a fun one. So he says the Amazon show for Silk won't be related to the MCU. Of course not. I don't think Amazon would take that deal if that were the case. But he does think there'll be an MCU version. And I find this hard to credit. First of all, it's a Sony character, so Sony would have to allow that. And again, if you're Amazon, why would you accept that as competition? So I don't buy this at all. I think Silk will just be on Amazon, but we'll have to wait and see. He also said Feige never changes his plans. So I think what he means is Feige doesn't do reactive changes to his plan. He doesn't do what WB did, a holistic change. You know, Snyderverse, get rid of it, bring on whatever the hell they're doing now. And I do agree with that. I disagree with the broader point. I mean, clearly he does make changes. The Sharon Carter Steve Rogers romance wasn't received well, so it was moved away from, etc. There's quite a few examples of that you can see. The way they've backed away from Elf Boner is another indicator. So yeah, so he does make changes, but yeah, not the big ones. Let's see what else. Anything else exciting? He repeated that Black Knight will both have his own films and be in an Excalibur TV show. I find that hard to believe. You know, Black Knight is an interesting character. I like the character, but can he shoulder two properties? I don't know. Maybe he can. I'm not saying it's a bad idea. It just seems I don't know. I just find it hard to believe. But boy, would you ever be investing in Kit Harington? Damn, he'd need a big fat deal for that. Repeated in Old Lords of the Long Box scoop that Wesley Snipes might appear as Dracula. Again, this is an old rumor. There are lots of rumors where Snipes is a difficult person to deal with. We simply have no idea. Could you do it? Maybe. Blade just got a delay, which I think is interesting. So clearly they're having some issues there. But yeah, food for thought. And then he repeated pretty much everyone except Finn Jones is coming back from Netflix. I find that hard to believe. If you're Feige and you want to do something new and different, how can you do that when everyone is the same? But we'll have to wait and see, right? You know, Charlie Cox is back, and we may get some other characters back too. But I just the holistic everyone back thing, I don't buy it. Then he had an R&D list, which I'll touch on a little bit of. He said Captain Britain will debut in Shang-Chi 2. Maybe, but that seems like a long way away. Now, okay, a long way away. Maybe it's just 3 years, but um, and that while I understand their connection in British intelligence, it seems like an odd place for him to appear. I do think he would help a Shang-Chi film, though. Yeah, if Shang-Chi performs just adequately, if it gets Ant-Man money, Captain Britain will help. So we'll have to see. Repeated another Lords of the Longbox scoop from a million years ago, which is Shaun of the She-Devil will appear in the second X-Men film in the Savage Land. Um, Maybe I'm very very leery about Marvel doing her or the Savage Land properly anymore, as we saw with the casting of Red Sonja. When it comes to redheads, there's no respect, so we'll see what happens. But again, I kind of like the idea. Let's see, anything else exciting in here? Oh, repeated that the MCU will be looking to Chris Claremont and the early Jim Lee era, as well as the animated series for inspiration for the X-Men. I like the first half of that. I don't like the second half. It's too early to tell, though. We'll just have to wait and see. Oh, and now apparently Sutton got very upset with this. So let me quote myself, and we can go through it. It's worth recalling that most of Sutton's Marvel scoops are also what Sutton would like to see in the MCU, so that does cause some concern. We see something very different in his DC material. Maybe he's very fortunate that he and Feige are on the same wavelength, but I believe there's an element of wish fulfillment from him, confirmation bias, as I've repeatedly gone over. So this really bothered him because his interpretation of that was that I was saying that his scoops are wish fulfillment. And that to me is not really the implication at all. What I'm saying is when he gets this information and he's trying to make sense of it, he has a bias. We all have bias. And that influences the way he puts the puzzle pieces together. I still think that's true. It's unfortunate he doesn't like that opinion. I can understand why he doesn't. That's my opinion. And look, Mikey, if you're right, I'm going to look like an ass, and you're going to be right later on. So you have nothing to worry about. That happened with Charlie Cox, right? So I would say, unlike the vast majority of people in this space, I am okay with being wrong. I operate with the information I have available to me. To me, he would have to be the luckiest man in the world if everything that he saw as a scoop matched what he would like. Maybe he is that fortunate. It's just hard to accept. Then we have a bunch of Daniel rumors, which are mostly useless. I think there was one thing I wanted to go over in here. Oh, right. So remember, by the way, Daniel rumors. There are two kinds of Daniel rumors. There are the ones that are dumped in this file, and then there are ones he will post on their own. The ones he posts on their own, he thinks are more valid. The ones he puts here are just things he's heard, right? Keep that in mind. So he said Sam and Rhodey will be the new Cap and Iron Man of the MCU. The problem I have with this idea is Don Cheadle, Rhodey, is an old man. He's older than Robert Downey Jr., if I remember correctly. I like I suppose as a mentor, but it's difficult to imagine him. And you know you're going to say RDJ is old. RDJ looks quite young for his age. He really does. Cheadle does not. Cheadle looks his age. And I just wonder if you could really do that. The other implication of that idea, of course, would be that we would get 3 War Machine films. I mean, obviously that's not happening. We're getting an Armor Wars series, which seems to be a handoff to Ironheart. And then for Falcon, he had a series first. Then he's going to get a movie, which we'll see how it goes. Do I think we'll get a Sam Wilson trilogy? We might get one on paper. I don't know if we'll actually get one. It's hard to say. I don't know. Marvel is feeling its oats, so they may be bold enough to go that way, but I'm not so sure. Other than that, I just think that the stuff in Daniel's rumor file is whatever. Just a little note about the Snyder Cut. One of the things I've wondered, and again, I'm only casually paying attention to this, is are the people who are supporting it willing to unsubscribe from HBO Max to push their agenda? I think if they are, they have some power. If they aren't, I just don't see it going anywhere. What is your leverage? This is the thing I thought about, for months. Once you have signed on to HBO Max, unless you are going to leave, you're already there. They don't, as a subscriber focused service, they no longer need you. You're already in. So I'd be curious to see if that's the tactics they want to do. At any rate, we'll hope I like this iteration of it, and if so, I will post it out. Thoughts and comments below. I think I'll probably do the Eternals article next as a video, and we'll go from there as I try to catch up with where I should be. And I